Welcome to the Jabbering Jawas podcast. This is your host, Joey Clark and Will.
The Thrill Staffer.
Yeah, usually he says his whole name, but I wanted to say the first part. No, I'm just
It'd
kidding.
be like that sometimes.
Or as we're known around here as Joey One Kenobi and Will Sith. Thank you all for joining us today. We are going to talk a
After
little about
after
the
warning
Mandalorian.
the kids.
Oh, yeah, that thing. If you are under the age of 18, young Padawan, either put them earbuds in or piss off. Or if you got cool parents, man, you can listen to it around them all day. We will curse. We will say a bunch of dirty, disgusting, vile, terrible things
Yes,
about the Rise of Skywalker. Maybe.
maybe.
Uh,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. So just be warned. Um, and then we'll talk a little about the Mandalorian trailer about how there wasn't really jack shit in it. Let's just kick this motherfucker off. What did you think about the Mando trailer?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fresh in my mind. I really just watched it because I was like, oh yeah, there was a trailer. Uh, yeah, I figured it was gonna be like kind of like TV spot kind of shit, and it was like, oh, they just give you a few more angles of the things you've already seen. The only two things I really gleaned out of it is that, like I was telling you before this, in one shot when they're being chased by the stormtroopers, I saw somebody who was blue sitting next to Cara Dune, I believe, and he speculated it could be the whatever his name was from the first episode of season one that Mando caught in frozen carbonite. So I don't know, uh, maybe he escapes and they like that. That's honestly the only thing I could see possibly happening is that he escapes. That I'm like, what reason would he need to let him out? You know, or it's just a completely different blue person. Who knows? But yeah, that's one of the only things I saw. And then Gideon's speech, I guess, in part of that, where he's just kind of talking about like,
Well, that's a TV spot, right?
oh yeah. Well, they showed it after the trailer, but I hadn't seen that either. So Gideon was just talking about like, oh, I'm gonna come get the baby, and we already speculated about he'll probably end up getting the child, like maybe like climax of the season, mid season, and then Mando has to get it back. So that's the only two things I really got from it is like just stuff we already talked about, which looks like they're definitely probably happening, like him teaming up with Cardoon and Carl Weathers. What's his name? Yes, teaming up with those two to take the child to wherever the hell they have to take him because who knows where they're going to take him. But yeah, that's basically all I got.
Yeah. I think I think it'd be kind of funny if kind of like in the fashion how Ahsoka let out Maul as a distraction. I feel like they might let out the Mithril character um, as part of a plan. Like, hey, we got a prisoner, and he's probably still shackled. And like, maybe it's like, if you play along with us, we'll do this so that. Or well, because he already turned in the bounties, so he should have already been part of it. So maybe what ends up happening is maybe he catches him again because Mithril doesn't learn his lesson, and it might be funny if like the man is like, you didn't learn your lesson the first time, or something like that. Some kind of funny banter, and then has to end up unfreezing him because that'd be kind of a cool callback to see someone else under the effects of hibernation sickness and him just
Yeah,
saying funny shit like I can't see. He's like you don't have to. I think that'd be interesting for sure.
especially with those three characters all in all in there because like none of them are going to give a shit about you know whether he can see or this or that. They're like, no, we got shit to do. Let's go. Like I think that's what I love about these three. Like I said, how they're like an older trio because they just do the. You could see possibly if this is like Luke, Leia, and Han. Like Han wouldn't care, but I feel like maybe Luke and Leia would be like, oh, well, we let this guy out. We kind of have to protect him, right? I don't know. It's like, so these three, they've been around the block, and I feel like they just don't give a shit about stuff like that. They're like, yeah, I mean, you're out, you can't see, but yeah, you got to get your shit together because we're being attacked. Let's go. So
Yeah,
that's what I like about this trio.
and I am kind of curious of the thing that I don't care about as far as the trailer. Like I get, and I do get like playing it close to the vest, wanting things to be a surprise. So I never expected Ahsoka. I never expected Boba Fett or Rex or whoever the fuck. Um, I just wanted to kind of get a little more of as far as like what's the story going into this? Where is this headed towards? Like just bits and pieces like that. Or even showing us characters like Moff Gideon. It would have been cool. Like just give us some new, tidbits to be excited for. Um, yeah, I didn't need like a whole, plot breakdown or anything, but just, set up like what is this next adventure gonna be. Um,
Yeah,
I think it, but I mean, I do get it. So I'm kind of just going in with no expectations, which maybe that's their point. They don't want us going in with expectations, so we just go along for the ride.
yeah.
Uh,
It might be for the best, honestly, that way. Like I was telling you before this, I feel like way too many studios. They show too much sometimes, with their movie trailers. So I can appreciate a studio not showing as much. But yeah, if you're gonna release a trailer, you should probably release it for a reason, like to actually show something. I don't really get the point of releasing a trailer just to show like a different angle of the same shot that you already showed. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. But I don't know. We'll see. It's out soon, so 5 days. Shit, I'm ready. We need some Star Wars something. I'll tell you that. So hopefully it's just as good, if not better, than the first season. Fingers crossed.
yeah, it's really a lot of just wait and see and hope for the best. It's not how I like going into things at all. Yeah, that's the other thing that's a little concerning is I believe in Favreau, I believe in Filoni, I believe in pretty much anyone that is behind it. I am just very cautiously optimistic because of how they were saying that it's not going to focus on Mando the whole time. So I'm like,
Mhm.
so what characters are you going to focus on? And I've been saying this a lot with friends and private conversations and with you and on here. And it's like, you have 8 episodes and probably about, depending on what they meant by they're going to play with time lengths, like how long they're going to play episodes out to be, 6 to 7 hours of content total.
Yeah,
There can't be any filler. There can't be any fat. It has to be clean and concise and just really hone in on the points that you're trying to make. It doesn't have the luxury of being like 22 episodes of Rebels and you can have an episode about space whales. I love space whales. I think the Purgle are really fucking cool. But I also get a lot of people don't, and it just adds fat to the story that didn't really need to be there.
yeah,
Uh, I do trust him. I'm just hoping they utilize the time wisely. Uh, I don't know. Do you think the very first episode? Do you think it'll be an hour long?
I feel like most likely if we get longer episodes, they'll be more towards the back half. I feel like that's how Disney does things. At least when I'm thinking about Star Wars. Like when you get in a longer episode in Rebels, which was very rare, it'll be like, a two-parter or something near the end of the season, you know, or maybe 30 something like minute finale or whatever, something like that. Or Clone Wars, where the last few episodes were like, well, they're about the same, but I feel like a bit longer depending on which one. Um, so I feel like if we do get longer episodes, most of the longer ones are going to be like after the second half at least. The first few will probably be like some a little bit shorter and setting things up, like probably similar to season one. And they said they're going to have varied episode lengths apparently. So I'm feeling more in the back half we'll have the longer episodes because they'll have to fill in a few more blanks. They're like, here's what's going on, here's what they're going to do, here's where they're going. And depending on how many characters they introduce this season, if the rumors that we are hearing are true, they'll have quite a bit to fill out throughout the season. So we'll see.
From what I understand, a lot of those rumors are true. I think there is a big reason why Filoni is directing one episode towards the end, and I'm pretty sure everyone's already guessed it. It's not even a rumor at this point. They fucking said it on the Germany Disney Plus. Ahsoka Tano is gonna be in this fucking season.
Yep.
The question is, in what capacity? How is she gonna be in it? And what the fuck is she gonna do? Because I think the biggest obstacles for the Mandalorian and having the force sensitive child is a couple of things. One, where is the child during the Rise of Skywalker? Is that thing gonna die? I doubt they're gonna kill something that cute. It wouldn't make any sense to me. The other thing that I keep thinking is Luke Skywalker is free to be a Jedi and is probably either started his Jedi Academy or about to. Is he going to run into them because he would be the one to seek out force sensitive kids?
Mm-hmm.
That is one of those things where I feel like it would be possible to see him, and maybe they've leaked things. Maybe Disney allowed stuff to happen so people would focus on things and not dig into other parts of what the Mandalorian is going to show. Like, oh, there's a lot of buzz around Tamora Morrison and Ahsoka, but there hasn't been any whispers about, like the potential of a Luke being on the show. Maybe they're trying to really keep that solid secret from everybody. This is just wild guessing. I have no clue.
Yeah.
If I was a company, I would definitely be like, "Hey, this fan favorite character is in here." Like, wink, wink. We fucked up. I honestly think it wasn't a fuck up. I think they probably were like, "Yeah, we gotta get more people on board. We can let this kind of slide, but just wait till you see the show because there's gonna be something really fucking cool none of you have been able to find out."
Yeah.
I would do it that way because I mean, the child, we had no clue that that thing was around,
Yeah.
and
Like it
we got it, and I was like, no fucking way.
definitely been good at keeping things close to the vest, the chest, the vest, something like that.
Yeah,
And that wouldn't surprise me if they had like a surprise character that we haven't heard about whatsoever. I will gladly welcome that, especially if it's like Luke or something. I don't. But like I think I said this before, but my only thing is if they introduce Luke, then it's like, then what happens to him? Where does he go? Why would he leave the child behind? I mean, I guess we don't really know what happens between here and Force Awakens and all that, but obviously his academy is gone. Where is the child? Did he ever start training it? Like, did he just not take the child? Like, what? You know? And there's of course the questions of whether the child is, actually a Yoda's race, if it's a clone of Yoda, what all this stuff, does that affect any of this stuff? So there's a lot of questions. So I do get your worry about like, oh, I hope that we get like all these episodes, we get just what we need and not too much extra, because there's a lot of questions we need answers to. So um, all we can do is wait and watch in 5 days. So yeah, but we are here to talk about something that has already passed.
I almost don't want to. It's so bad.
Before we start, though, I don't know if y'all noticed, I got the Jabbering Jawas merch here. I'm gonna T Public, pick yourself up some. But yeah, we're gonna talk about the greatest Star Wars film ever made. No,
The fall of the fall of Star Wars, the rise of mediocrity. Yeah.
yeah,
Let me just preface this by saying there are some good key moments in this film, but it is a steaming pile of bantha poodoo, and I don't want to waste a whole bunch of time shit talking this film even more. Um, we're gonna do a little bit of it.
yeah,
I think is what I'll always say. I won't blame J.J. Abrams. I don't even blame Ryan Johnson. I will always blame Kathleen Kennedy and leadership because you took a great franchise and you ran it into the fucking wall. You had your fans on the side of you with Force Awakens. You rushed a trilogy. You didn't plan out a trilogy. There's no excuse. You had Disney and all of its assets and resources at your disposal, and you didn't utilize them properly. That is the point, in fact. There is a reason why people aren't wanting an abundance of merch or spending a bunch of money on shit. Yeah, there are people that do, but there are people calling more for Clone Wars, for Rebels, for especially Clone Wars, and for original and prequel trilogy stuff.
yeah,
Seen it firsthand, and then you build your park around it. And from what I've been told by cast members from Galaxy's Edge, and especially since a bunch of them just got fired and laid off from Disneyland,
yeah.
and they basically picked on the Galaxy's Edge employees, from my understanding, talking to quite a few of them. Um, yeah, Star Wars is at a weak point when the Mandalorian has to pick up a lot of slack.
All the slack, basically.
Yeah, there's a reason why you see memes of them like, here's the Mandalorian pulling along the Star Wars franchise.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad to say, we are in a point of nearly no return if the next Star Wars film is not good, if it is not a solid piece of work. I don't know how long it'll be until the Star Wars franchise is revitalized and we have a majority of the fan base together again.
It'll
Uh,
likely be from the original trilogy to when the sequels, when the prequels came out. It'll probably be something like that. I would guess. But yeah, let's start off. What were your initial thoughts when you first watched Rise of Skywalker, when you first came out to theater?
I think when I first watched it, I felt great about it. I enjoyed it. Um, but as I watched it a second time, a third time, I was I just became angry, and I realized I think it's because everyone was so excited about those fucking trailers. They made it look so good, and I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us fooled ourselves into thinking it was really good. Um, and I think that's why like the casual viewer thought it was good because they probably saw it like one time. Like my best friend ever, John. I think he only saw it one time. And he's a casual fan and he thought it was great. I'm a diehard and I thought the first time it was good. There was things about it that I had issues with, but I thought it was ultimately good. But then I watch it all the way through. Watch 7 through 9. There is no cohesiveness between the three films.
Yeah.
You can say whatever issues that the prequels had, and there are a lot, but there is a fucking cohesive story that makes sense. I think the biggest issue with this is that it is synthetically Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
or it is surface level Star Wars. Here's some X-wings, here's some TIE fighters, a pseudo empire, and a pseudo rebellion. What are the stakes? We don't really know. The First Order blew up 3 planets. Okay.
Hmm.
So they blew up 2 more than the other one. And the other thing too is that the whole fucking trilogy takes place over the course of a year and a half, maybe 2 years. You don't really get the stakes of it. And you could argue that in the original trilogy, you can't feel it as much. And I'll give people that, but you should learn from the mistakes of the past. You have the ability to
Mm-hmm.
make it and flesh it out more.
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand is like
You know
you
what's
nail any part of it.
yeah, you know what's interesting about Rise of Skywalker to me is that it's the third movie in the franchise, right? And the more I watch it, the more I realize that the scale of it. Because remember when we talked about the original trilogy and how you didn't really get to feel the scope of like the Empire and like the first one or whatever, and like the more the movies went, you got to feel more of the scope of the Empire. And I feel like this kind of went reverse. It's like I felt like Force Awakens, you felt the scope of the First Order like decently, like okay, they spread like pretty across the galaxy, and then from there it seemed like they kept getting smaller and smaller, and then even though they went to different planets, and this I think is one of the things that bothers me. One of the things that bothers me the most about this movie is that they go to different places, but you don't get much of these places, which is really weird. Like I didn't even know that at the beginning. I had no idea that Kylo Ren was on Mustafar. I had zero idea. I'm like, he's on Mustafar? That's what that was? Like I had no idea. Like these scenes were so like contained. Like it was strange. They went to this the planet where I don't know what it's called, another kind of desert planet. And Kylo Ren grabs her necklace, and it's like we're at the little thing with the people dancing, and then you were out in the middle of nowhere, and then in the little cave. So it's like we don't even get to see like what is this planet? It just looks like another desert planet. Yet another desert planet, you know? And when they go to the planet to find the Death Star, we don't see any of the planet. It's just them walking up and like, hey, we found the Death Star, guys. Put the dagger up. And I think that's like one of the things to me that just didn't make sense. The more that I watched these movies over and over again, it's like we don't get any of the scope of these planets. It's like even you think back to Return of the Jedi with the indoor and everything, the Forest Moon to indoor. You still got the scale like indoor. It's like sure there was this contained battle in this certain area, but you kind of got like okay, there's like Star Destroyers over here, like going over. They're guarding this whole ship. They have to sneak in there. There's this big like just forest moon, and there's a barrier around it. Like you just get like this whole setup for like this place, but I feel like you just don't get that a lot in Rise of Skywalker, and it's like how do you go to these places and like we don't really understand where they are, why they're there, and like what this place is, like what is it used for, what do they do here? And you can say what you want about like Solo or whatever like that, but at least they had like some places they went. And you knew what the places were and what they were used for or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, what do we know about the planet with the dancing aliens? What's the planet? What do they do? What do they do there? They just dance? Is that what? Yeah. But apparently that was a special celebration. But it's like we don't know anything else about the planet or these people. It's like what do they do? Just some of the things you have to like set up. So it's like we don't understand this. And even like when the battle, when they battle Palpatine and all this shit, Well, all we get of that sixth planet is the dark ass pyramid, and then the Star Destroyer is rising out of the like. Can we know more about this planet? Because like it's actually pretty cool, if you think about it. Like, why are they on this planet? Why is this the planet they're choosing? But exactly like you talked about before, we have to keep getting this stuff in like comic books or like novelizations, and it's like, why don't we get any of this information in the movie? like, you know,
Because we want to sell like 5,000 more books. It is an absolute, like, there were parts of my review for the Rise of Skywalker book that I left out. One of the lines that I had written initially for my review at the very end is, put your story on the big screen, not an overpriced paperweight. That was in my initial review, and I think I said something even worse than that. But that's what I remember. It's like, and I don't blame Ray Carson. I think she did the best she could with the crap that they gave her to write. I don't blame her at all. And then there were details in that book that contradict the film, and then it just, and I know that they've already come out and said before the movie takes precedent over canon, which that's fine. I understand film primary. There's going to be discrepancies here and there. That's cool. However, your books and your comics should not rely or be the backup for shitty storytelling.
mm-hmm.
And again, this is not blaming the Lucasfilm Story Group, because besides their name, they are not the ones that write the fucking movies. It is up to the director whether or not they utilize them.
Yeah.
JJ didn't utilize them the first time, and from what I know from friends, he didn't do it this time. That's on him. Ryan, I've heard sparingly use them, but not that much. Rogue One used them a lot. Solo used them a lot. Say what you will about Solo, I have issues with it. Rogue One and Solo are the two solid films, probably because they utilized a group that knows about the fucking world.
And like
Uh,
Solo, the movie wasn't a great movie, but its continuity I feel like was good and everything. Like its continuity and like the planets and like the feel of Star Wars was there. I'll give them that.
and that's so much better than you can say for any of these fucking movies. It's Rise of Skywalker is the culmination of everything of what is wrong with Disney's era of Star Wars. It is it doesn't know how to do fan service correctly. There is ways of doing fan service properly, and it is said best if you watch the Making of the Mandalorian series on Disney Plus, Episode 8, when Filoni and Favreau talk about fan service and how to do it. They nailed it on the fucking head. They know what people want because they give a shit, but they will only do it if it fits the story and it calls for it and it makes sense. That is how you do proper fan service. I don't need I don't need to be catered to completely. However, I think a majority of the fan base, and it is really divided and split. Majority of the fan base would have loved to see Luke Skywalker pull out a saber and be a badass. That is a given.
Yep.
That is not fan service. It makes sense for his character to be a badass. Even and it does make sense for his character to be a recluse and hide out too. It does not mean that he dies from using the force one fucking time. I don't get in whatever spectrum or world of worlds that makes any sense, and then you half-assedly bring him back for a small cameo that is the one of few good moments in that fucking movie.
And you know why
It's
it was a good moment though? Because he was talking shit about the Last Jedi when he did it. But it's like this is kind of awkward that they had to put this moment in their third movie, kind of bashing on their second movie. Like,
and JJ has come out and said many times that's not what he intended to do. I I don't know if he was bashing the Last Jedi or just so much the fact of its existence, but there's nothing you can't tell me that he didn't feel bad about it because he's like, you took my baby and ran it into the fucking wall. Granted, he had the opportunity to do eight, but I do not blame him at the same point because they wanted him to jump on board right away.
Yeah.
Even the man who created Star Wars could not fucking do that. There is a reason he took a 3 year release gap because you need time to decompress. But the
Mhm.
mouse is too fucking greedy and wants to line its pockets and would want it at every 2 years. I would have been happy if you did it every three. Do I have to wait a year longer? Yeah, but then I don't need to have this shitty ass conversation with you and be disappointed in a film that will forever plague the Star Wars community. And
Yeah.
people keep saying they'll age really well, they'll age really well. I want you to tell me, people, what is going to age well? The prequels age well because you have some really good moments, some really good characters, and Clone Wars does help a lot. And there is a cohesive story that fits in with 4, 5, and 6. Tell me what aspect of this franchise is now redeemable? This trilogy. There is no cohesive story. Your characters are a wreck. You wanted to preach the fact that you gave a shit about other races and minorities, but then you tanked the fuck out of their characters by sidelining the shit out of them. Your lead characters are confusing as fuck because you wanted to pull the puppet strings in different directions. She's a Kenobi, she might be a Skywalker, she might be a Sith Lord. Oh, she came out of Palpatine's clone ball sack or
Yeah.
offspring. It's like,
I'm I'm glad you I'm glad you brought up characters though, because yeah, like that's like the main component you fucking need. And they ruined so many characters. Like so many characters had such good potential. And I mean, yeah, obviously Last Jedi, introduced some characters or like did things with characters that wasn't great, but they could have in this movie they could have redeemed plenty of them. And I'll give JJ some credit for putting them together, but I don't know if it had to do with like the Last Jedi or whatever. But they didn't really have anything to do other than like Ray. They're just there. And we have fucking poor John Boyega just has to yell Ray the whole fucking movie, and then the confusing ass line of Ray, I need to tell you something. And bro, I got out the movie, and I was like, oh, okay, he had to tell her that he like loves her or something. Like, is that it? Because in the first movie they set up that thing, and then the second movie they just threw it away, and then JJ's trying to bring it back. Is that what it was? But then JJ's like, oh no, he wants to say he's force sensitive, and then like, hey, we give Poe this random woman that you never heard of, and drug running past, and I thought that was kind of weird. He like ran Spice or whatever, and I'm like, okay, I guess, but like when? I don't know. I thought that was a weird addition
and
that
this
he
has
has.
some of the worst fucking humor in it too, like just cornball
Yeah,
bullshit. Like Spice Runner, and like, oh, you were a stormtrooper, like,
yeah,
and then the other thing too is bringing them all together. It felt so fucking forced. It felt unnatural.
no pun
I
intended.
did not give a shit about their friendships, and it's like you split them all up in the Last Jedi without bringing them really back together by a point in time. At least with Luke, he's like, there's a reason he goes off, and what he learns and does is important. And he even mentions, Han and Leia to Yoda. So there's, even though they're not physically together, like, that they're still on his mind and stuff. When
Mhm.
Rey goes to, it is purely for her. She's not saying anything about her friends or anything like that.
Yep.
And it just feels so disjointed. And then they only all come together by the last minute. And then she didn't even meet Poe, I think, in The Force Awakens,
Mm, if she did, it was off screen.
or very
Yeah,
brief.
because as
Like,
soon as they landed on that last planet in Force Awakens, when they landed back at the Rebel base, and then Finn and Poe see each other, but then Kylo had taken Rey, and then at that point, when Rey finally comes back, she's just like, "Well, I'm just gonna immediately go find Luke so we can get the last moment of this film." And then, like I said, when we talked about Force Awakens, those are like kind of the reasons I didn't like the cliffhanger at the end of Force Awakens because it felt kind of rushed. It was like you didn't get to hear Luke speak, and then the second movie just leads right into that, and there's like absolutely no time lapse at all because they're like, oh well, I guess we have to start off here because we showed Luke.
but you
I don't
could
know.
have easily just done it where it was like you show the opening sequence, have Luke train the girl, and then like you wouldn't say like 5 years later or something like that, but you could easily show the lapse
Show the
of time.
passage of time.
Yeah, where it's
Yeah.
like training sequence or something like that, or maybe they have a conversation, and then you just see like space overhead. Starfighter comes through the stars, and then it's Luke, Ray, Leia, and company going down and fucking up some stormtroopers on a planet.
Mhm.
Like, I don't get why you couldn't have done that. It was the easiest thing. And it's not, and I know that they say hindsight bias is 2020. That's what I would have fucking thought would have happened.
Yeah.
Like,
And then, honestly, when after the Force Awakens came out, and then we saw that, and like that happened at the end, I thought that they probably would still time skip. Honestly, I'm like, okay, so now that she's gonna, have her training with Luke, and then, but I didn't know that like half the movie was gonna be her trying to convince him to train her, and then convince him to take get back with the Force and help me beat the First Order. And I was like, oh, that's really like half the movie. Oh, sorry, we're not talking about Last Jedi, but it leads into Rise of Skywalker because yeah, it's so disjointed because it's like I I I honestly just don't think that they had conversations at all. Like I think JJ finished Force Awakens and then he's like, oh no, I don't want to do it, and then he like went on vacation somewhere and they didn't like try to consult him or anything. And Ryan Johnson's like, all right, let's do what I want to do now. And Kathy Kennedy's like, yes, yes, you make those one-liners and sell some toys. And yeah.
or in his
Mm.
case, not sell some toys.
Well, yeah. And then yeah, like I said, we get into Rise of Skywalker, and Finn is already, like we said in Last Jedi, his character was like fucking ruined. He didn't do shit in Last Jedi. They introduced Rose, but they gave her shit to do, shit lines, like a shit motivation. She didn't even do shit for her dead sister or anything, which would have actually been compelling. She did shit because she's like fangirling over Finn. That's basically like was her purpose, which is like you don't introduce, and this is the issue, like you don't introduce, a new female character and it's like talk about, oh, our movies have female power, but then her whole entire fucking motivation is, well, I want to help this guy that I like. Oh yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like, come on. And at first I was like, is that her motivation? No, that's not just like her only motivation, right? And then we get to the end where she saves Finn, even though probably could have saved everybody else. And then she's like, "Oh, let me kiss him now." And I'm like, oh, "Okay, that was her entire motivation. Cool." And because they butchered that character, and then their actress got death threats and shit, then they're like, "Oh, you know what? I guess we'll just scale her back in this next movie." And it's like, what was the point? Like, So yeah, but it's just they butchered so many characters. So her character could have had potential if they leaned more into the fact that her sister was like a war hero, basically. Shit like that. John Boyega's character started off really strong in Force Awakens, and then just pew, he just became Ray. Ray, where are you? And then they decide to introduce female Finn, who of course is related to fucking uh
And
Lando. I'm like, why do they have to be related to him?
I don't mind the fact that those two are related because I think it's kind of cool that, and it shows a little bit of evolution for Lando having a kid. Like he stopped that lifestyle and kind of was able to settle down and have a
Well,
family.
did he
And
though?
well, because from what, here's the other thing that sucks is like the book, the way that it describes it is that he had a kid. They were happily a family, from what I understand. The kid was kidnapped because
Mm.
they were targeting rebel leaders' kids
Oh,
to
okay,
try and get back. Which is like this would have been a great fucking thing to
that's actually
put.
really compelling. Yeah.
And it's like I know you can't fit everything into a film, but here's the thing:
Hmm.
if it's Star Wars, you're gonna sell seats, and that's the point. You could have. I wouldn't have minded at all if you had Episode 9, Part 1 and Part 2,
And
because this really needed to do a lot of heavy lifting, which is why I don't blame JJ. But and the other thing too is the big mess of all of this is that everything is too set up and feels phony because like, oh, this piece leads to this. Oh, this stupid knife thing happens to point the direction of where we need to go
yeah,
on a Death Star that should have been completely, for the most part, obliterated.
yeah, I'm
Because,
like that water is gonna tear that shit up and move it completely. That yeah, yeah,
well, not just that, but the Death Star is literally a mega nuclear explosion.
yeah.
And then how the fuck? I get that certain things would survive, like even after being blasted. Glass is not one of them. Palpatine's chair, I'm pretty sure, wouldn't survive. And I do get having the Death Star wreckage as kind of a callback. I get that, and it does look cool. But you have to do it, and I know that it's a fantasy space film. I get that you have to kind of dumb things down, and not everything needs a scientific explanation. I get that, but it's still a bit far fetched. Like I don't think that big of a piece of the Death Star would go around, and
No,
it's
no.
just, and then
Let alone a
even
wayfinder.
yeah, a Sith Wayfinder. I mean, you mean like a fucking holocron? That was the other thing too. It's like here are these things that are not exactly like these things. Like Exegol is the Sith planet. The Sith planet is Moraband. Like
Oh, was
that.
that supposed to be that? Oh God, see, you see what I mean? Oh,
Like I'm pretty sure Exegol they called the Sith planet. But it's like no, that's more. I
and yeah,
can't
wait,
remember because there was Moraband is the
I, yeah, I didn't understand the fucking change to wayfinder. It's like I get that some people might not know what a holocron is,
but
but I think they'll
introduce
start to understand what a fucking holocron is when they see it. And that's the point of that's always been the point of Star Wars. I think that's another thing that bothers me about this trilogy is they like feel this need to like, oh well, we need to make things more understandable for modern audiences. But that's not what Star Wars was. They introduced shit in there that you wanted to learn about because you're like, oh, what is that? That's like Star Wars, you know? They throw things in there, their own terms, their own planets, their own species, whatever. And you want to learn about things like we don't need to compare them to things in real life. Like people, if they like Star Wars enough, they're gonna understand what a fucking holocron is because they're gonna look it up or read a book about Star Wars or whatever, and they're gonna find out what a holocron is. So I don't understand the fucking change to Wayfinder. I don't get that.
yeah, it's like that's again the thing where it's like superficial Star Wars. Like here's the thing that looks like it, but we're not gonna use it. It's like
Star
and
Wars Light.
yeah, exactly. It's like buying off-brand soda.
Yeah.
Like here's Diet Cola versus Diet Coke, or And it's not even Diet Cola. It's like
Looking
lukewarm
that Safeway
hot
brand,
water from Stater Brothers. If that.
that
It's
Safeway brand shit.
don't talk bad about Safeway like that.
All
But
I'm saying is they got that little Safeway brand soda. It's not the same.
it's I can't stress how terrible this fucking movie is. It's and like I showed my dad every single new Star Wars film because he's who showed me Star Wars. And I get there's a generational gap, but he really enjoyed The Force Awakens. He really enjoyed Rogue One. He thought Solo wasn't too bad, and he was kind of about Last Jedi, but he didn't have as much disdain for it as I did. He really did not like Rise of Skywalker, and he's a casual fan, but he was just like really confused about what was happening. And he's a really smart guy. It's not like he has old man syndrome, like what's happening. No, he's up there as far as and he was really lost and confused too. So that's the other thing too, is like if you were to watch 7 through 9 and just as any person, the story is confusing as shit. And since we're both big story people, it's not like a few little minor things and like they're retconned all of a sudden. It's like major shit. Like Ray, your main female lead. I loved every character in The Force Awakens. Loved. You obliterated the fuck out of any future with pretty much all of them. The only way I see a future for any of these characters, you need a new fucking team to rehaul the shit out of them, or have their own standalone series, or do a prequel to Kylo Ren.
Probably being animated. Let's be real.
Yeah, but and keep fucking anyone who was making these movies away from them, unless you have JJ on consulting going, this is how I wanted it to be. And the other thing too is that the legacy of these characters, the legacy of the original characters, I don't really think any of them got the justice they deserved. Um, Especially with Han Solo, I know I
Think of
saw the death coming. I didn't feel really attached to his death,
well, I think
and
out of all of them, he got the best death. That's the thing. And it wasn't even that.
sad
Yeah.
because the thing is, like, there should have been a moment between Kylo Ren and Han before it all went down. The easiest thing of them maybe locking eyes across the battlefield on Takogana would have probably been enough. Keeping that deleted scene where Kylo Ren is inspecting the Falcon, and maybe he has a flashback when she touches it. That would have been a cool thing. And then Luke's death is the stupidest fucking thing ever. Leia, I can understand because Carrie unfortunately is not with us. She's with the Force,
Yeah.
hopefully looking down upon us from heaven. Um, I love her to, I love her in so many ways, and
Just recently her birthday too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand the tragedy that that had. I thought they probably did the best they could as far as her death, her reaching out to the Force to try and save her son. I think that was a beautiful thing, and I think they did as good as they could, so I don't blame them for that one. But Luke and Han, they didn't die in the best of ways. Luke should have gone out like a real hero, and I know fighting isn't the Jedi way, but to literally just force projection dead, that's stupid as shit. If
So,
you're defending with your lightsaber, you're not wanting to fight.
so,
Before,
so question. I don't know if you know this. I heard that the scene where Han shows up to Kylo there at the end, and before he ultimately turns, becomes Ben again. I heard that wasn't actually new. That it was from like the Force Awakens. Is that true, or was it filmed for that? Did they actually bring him back? Because if that was from The Force Awakens and they already had it filmed, that means they did have another scene, possibly that they would have set up with him and Kylo. And that's like a problem that this franchise, well, not this franchise, sorry, I apologize. This trilogy, it's a problem that this trilogy's had a lot where they don't give characters enough time together before they do something between them. The only people that they did do that with was Kylo and Rey. That's it. And like everybody else is just like, oh, they saw each other once, and now they have banter, and now they hate each other, and now they do this. It's like, I think that's the other thing that bothers me about in the Last Jedi with the banter between um, General Hux and Poe.
Oh,
Oh, when the fuck have we seen those two like actually interact before that? You know, it's just all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
you.
there's no history or prior like. That's a
I could
good point that you bring up.
I could see
And
that with him and Kylo maybe.
and to answer your question, no, they brought Harrison Ford back for that one thing,
Okay.
so it is brand new footage. Um, that's the thing about, and we'll talk about the little good that is in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That moment, it is a good moment, and I felt genuinely sad, and I did shed a tear or two when I watched it. The only thing though is that it makes sense, but it also doesn't because there are other people that would have made even more sense for Ben to see, like Anakin,
Mm-hmm.
or having both of them, or something like, yeah, and really no mention of Anakin in this trilogy.
He just talked to a helmet.
They mention Darth Vader, but you don't mention the Chosen One. And
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to hear Rey is the Chosen One. No, she really isn't. And then you brought Palpatine back in the shittiest of fucking ways. You didn't plan that shit either. Even Ian McDermott said when they started production, they called him and was like, "Hey, you want to be back as the Emperor?" It's like, that's not fucking planning jack shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, planning even this movie was fucking stupid because even Daisy Ridley said they were changing it as they were filming. A key component of all of this shit that they've been changing since the first film. How do you not fucking plan out a multi billion-dollar franchise? What is one thing that you should do with any business? Have a plan.
Yeah, like
Oh.
yeah, they didn't fucking. She didn't know who she was playing. Like she thought she could have been a Kenobi. She thought she could have been a Skywalker. She thought she could have been. I don't think she knew she could have been a Palpatine. That's the problem. She's like, oh, I wasn't even in that mindset. And then they're like, oh, hey, you're a Palpatine, by the way. But yeah, going off what you're saying about Anakin showing up, and that would have been even more parallels to like Anakin was Anakin, he was good, and then he fell to the dark, and it would have been a great parallel to for Anakin to be the one to bring Ben back from the dark, and then he goes light again, and then of course just going one more bad thing, they kill Ben. So it's like his redemption arc, like you said before, was it just wasn't there. Like there was no redemption. Like he did, I guess, help kill Palpatine and everything, and like that's fine. And then he dies immediately after, and it's like he's so young and stuff, and it's just like okay,
Just like he really was a wannabe Vader till the end.
yeah,
But, and that's the other resolution you don't get either. Is like, what did he know about Darth Vader? Like, that's the other thing that makes no sense. Is like, does he know the full story? Who twisted his mind to think that it is a fucking mess?
and that's the other thing when they talked about concept art for like before these movies even came out. They talked about how Kylo was supposed to have his little room, his throne room or whatever you call it. It was supposed to have a bunch of like Jedi artifacts and like Sith artifacts and shit like that he collected over the years, and it was supposed to be like this like crazy dark like it would have played to his character where he's kind of like basically an emo teenager kind of thing, you know, and he has like all this memorabilia from like Sith artifacts and shit, and that would have it would have added to his character, especially with the beginning of this movie when he's going through Mustafar, I guess, and he finds the holocron, and it would add to his character because they're like, okay, that's something we expect from him because he just collects shit, but we didn't. And then that scene was so random; it just came out of nowhere. Like the movie starts and he's just like killing whoever the fuck these people are on some planet, and yeah,
And
there's
then,
so many missed opportunities for character growth.
and like the fact that you could have had him go to Vader's castle, and you could have had him listening to
And they just
like
they
the
just had that.
flight of the past. Like if you would have had in the background him going to the spots where his grandfather and Obi-Wan fought, and you hear the screams and the yells and building this shit up, and maybe as he's walking through the halls of Vader's castle,
You know,
maybe there's something there that starts putting the gears in his head of him turning, and it's like I thought about that shit even before. It makes sense. It would have been cool. We would have known what fucking planet we were on, for fuck's
yeah,
sake.
that maybe would have been like a minute or two. And Rogue One came out before that, so they should have like the fucking set for like Vader's castle and shit, right? I just I don't.
Well,
They should have those resources. That's what I'm saying. Like,
to be fair, the
obviously,
set was probably destroyed, but you can always rebuild it again or do it digitally, or
yeah, I
because
guess.
usually they tear down sets as soon as. But
What you're talking about there, maybe it would have taken 2 minutes, maybe three. All you have to do is show like certain spots, and we're gonna know. Like, wait, that's where Obi-Wan and Anakin fought. Oh, that was Vader's castle that we saw. You know what I mean? We would have known. So it's like I don't. And Mustafar is, I would say, is one of people's favorite planets. From like, it was a fucking awesome place in Revenge of the Sith. So it's like, why would you not showcase the fact that he's there? You know,
and you don't even make it obvious that it's Mustafar. You can't infer.
he's in the middle
All
of
it
the
is a
tree.
red planet with trees. Like when we saw Mustafar, it was fucking lava. And then I found out by reading a reference book, some Sith. It is a really convoluted plot, but something happened, and then regrowth on Mustafar had started happening over the decades, so that's why there's trees and shit on it now. It's like, and we can really infer that it's Mustafar. Fuck no, we can't. Like that looks like a completely different planet. It looks
How
like a
fucking,
cool planet, but it don't look like fucking Mustafar.
how fucking fast would trees grow? It's only been like what 30, 40 years. It wouldn't grow that fast.
Yeah. Again, not planning. And the other thing too, there's so many opportunities to connect it to the prequels, which is where this whole story starts, but you don't fucking do it. And the other thing too that pisses me off, no Force Ghosts, no Jedi Force Ghosts.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
we need every single one there? No, but you could have had Obi-Wan, Yoda, Qui-Gon, and Anakin. All four of them have been confirmed to have that ability. Um,
And they had voices, so
that
they
was
could have
bull.
Force Ghost, but they didn't.
I heard some lame excuse that potentially the reason there wasn't Force Ghosts is because in certain Asian cultures they find things like that offensive, and that's why they didn't do it for the bigger mass market. I don't give two fucks because it, I wouldn't
I mean, did
put
they
it
watch
past them to do stupid shit like that
did they watch
because,
the other Star Wars movies though?
huh?
Did they watch the other Star Wars movies though? So I'm like,
And they had Force Ghost Luke.
yeah, he was a Force Ghost in that, and then there was Force Ghost in all the prequels.
This is just a rumor I heard. I don't
Yes, it's fucking
I
weird.
don't know for sure. I just know that I've seen behind the scenes stuff at Pixar, and I know that they changed the line in Cars because Mater said radioactive, and they're like, no, we don't want to offend the Japanese for the word radioactive. So I could see them doing stupid things like that. Like we can have one Force Ghost, but we can't have a group of them. Like I, it wouldn't shock me. Is all I will say.
Yeah, it's a little too corporate.
Um, and I think that's the biggest issue with Star Wars. It's corporate, and all they care about is dollar signs. Disney to me used to mean, yeah, there's dollar signs, and it's a
Mm.
really good company in that sense. But to me, they used to push the envelope. They used to care about the creativity. And I think Walt Disney would not like the state of his company. The profits, sure, but he was willing to go into so much debt in order to build Disneyland, in order to build Walt Disney World. He wanted to see the vision come to life no matter what it took because he believed in it. I don't think that they truly believed in Star Wars because they played it safe in The Force Awakens, and it is a good movie for the most part. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, let's make it different with this guy that's never helmed a major film in a big franchise. For whatever fucking reason, they thought that Ryan Johnson would be a good director for this. I love Knives Out. We talked about Knives Out, one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't get where you think he would be a good person to give a couple $100 million to make a Star Wars film because his resume doesn't make sense to be a part
Yeah,
of Star Wars. It just doesn't.
and it's funny that you brought up China because you can kind of see the writing on the wall, honestly. And I totally forgot about this when we talked about John Boyega, but I just like remembered it. But when The Force Awakens came out, you remember they put the poster up there, and like here in America, John Boyega's character was a very big part of the poster for like the lightsaber and everything. And in China, they put him like in the very like corner, very small, because like, oh well, because the he's a black guy, he's not going to play as well there or whatever. And you can almost see the writing on the wall there, with like in terms of him and his character. So I like just thought about that, and I'm like, damn, that's like already like Disney's willing to do that. It's like, what else are they gonna do? Like, oh well, people are upset about this Asian girl, so we're gonna cut her parts out. People are not loving this guy's character. Some people on the internet are upset, so let's change it. We'll do this. And yeah, that's kind of the issue with Disney. I will say I defended them a lot when they first got Star Wars, and exactly all the reasons you're talking about. I'm like, no, Disney, they always make good shit. They're always like creative, this and that. And people were like referencing like John Carter and shit like that. And I'm like, oh, I like John Carter. Like I thought it was good, I thought it was fine because Disney made that, and a lot of people didn't like it. But at this point, I can't. Like, there's nothing I can really defend them with. They did a good job with Mandalorian and Rogue One, but most of this stuff that has come out has not been up to par when it comes to Star Wars. So yeah, there's we talk about it a lot. There's got to be some sort of major changes, like creatively or something, because it's way too like bottom line. And no, we need to do this and make this much, so we need to make sure that this looks like this or this does that, and we'll give the people everything they want, but also nothing that they want. like
Yeah,
they try to make that work somehow.
yeah. I mean, none of us want bad Star Wars films. I'll say this again. If you enjoy the sequels, more power to you.
Just come
But
on, come on the show so we can like. I want to know from like the perspective of somebody, honestly, who
yeah,
who really enjoys them. Like I honestly want to know.
I feel like people are fooling themselves, and I'm not trying to belittle your opinion. I get it. There are things that I love that people don't understand why. I do get it, but I can back it up. I don't get how you can say or really think that these movies are superior in any way, besides maybe the way that they're shot and then the actors in them. I would say the hardest thing about this is that, again, you have the best resources, the best assets at your disposal,
The
and
best
you could
talent.
even argue the best actors to date in the franchise. You underutilize the fuck out of them, and you just like. I hope to God that for some of these actors, it doesn't tarnish their reputation because of the film that they were in. Like, they are not well thought out films. They are not put together nicely. They are a mess.
Hmm.
I can't. And the other thing that I hate too is when people keep saying fanboy tears, fanboy tears. You just don't like women. You just don't like black people. It's like, no, I love both of them. That's why I'm pissed that this movie sucks so much because they're not showcasing women, women of color, men of color in positive lights. You gave them a shitty role.
They
You
literally
gave
made
them a shitty story.
they literally made the Asian girls role in fucking Last Jedi. I'm doing this for this guy that I like. Like, come on, that's not what you want from like the, the first Asian female character in a Star Wars movie. It's like, oh, her entire motivation is I want to impress this guy that's so cool, and he's a rebel. It's a rebel guy. Yeah, like yeah, it's
Yeah.
just not good writing. Like it's
And like, there's definitely, girls like that or go through that, and I get it, but it's also at the same point, like what you're saying, the first female like actress to be in it, and you have Kelly Marie Tran, and then you're going to make her this stereotyped kind of like docile Asian woman where they can't, speak up or really defend themselves. They're just gonna roll over for a dude that they like,
yeah,
why? And I, you know, the other thing I'm curious is how much studio involvement these films have had. George was able to make the films that
a
he
lot.
wanted. So how much of these films are really JJ? How many are really Ryan? How many is JJ again? Because
I think we can say a lot, and they're paid enough that they're not gonna say publicly about any shit. There's probably so much shit they signed and whatnot. They can't talk about it. It's like we always see them like allude to certain things like very vaguely, but they're not gonna talk about it because like yeah, you don't play around with Disney. Like they will they'll bury your career probably faster than
yeah, but I mean Daisy and John and Oscar have all kind of said their pieces about it. So
yeah.
I'm hoping one day JJ does too. And
Uh,
hell, if Kathleen Kennedy is not responsible for this and she eventually comes out and goes, Bob Iger was just the biggest asshole ever and he wouldn't let me do anything, or Alan Horn was the biggest asshole and he basically ran the shit show, like, I will make a public apology on my hands and knees, being like, I'm sorry, Kathleen Kennedy, that
yeah,
Alan Horn or Bob Iger fucked up.
yeah, because you never know. There, somebody in their position is probably in has a lot of pressure too. So you never know. But for right
She
now,
should
it's like
be able
she's
to
one running the
handle
shit.
that.
Yeah,
But an executive producer for that many years should be able to handle that shit. That's the other thing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the stuff that I've heard from people that I trust that work there and other people that have interacted with her and things that have been said at board meetings that I've heard and have heard leaked and I've heard confirmation on, she is one of the reasons why Galaxy's Edge, initially the plans for it were to be Tatooine,
Mhm.
and she didn't want that and pushed heavily for something new, and it sucks. Uh, yeah, I don't get why the people that kiss her ass. It's like, and a lot of people I've seen, we love her because it's a woman running Star Wars. It's like, well, it's a woman ruining and fucking up Star Wars. If she was a woman making it awesome, that's great. I don't really care whoever has whatever between their legs or what they identify as. I just want someone that knows what the fuck they're doing, whether it's a man, woman, or any other person of any other gender, race, creed, sex, whatever. Just don't fuck up my franchise.
Yeah.
Don't fuck up the thing that I love more than anything. Is everything going to be catered to you or I? No.
Nah.
That's okay. but don't fuck up something beautiful that a man worked his entire life to create because you have billions of dollars and a mouse pulling the strings of franchises.
Yeah.
Think that you can go in and do any better or reinvent the formula when you really fucking couldn't, and that's why you ruined the trilogy.
Yeah. So before we end off, because we kind of talked about good, not really, but let's end off with the one thing about the movie that you liked the most.
Babu Frick.
He was that was a cute ass character. I will give him that. And that's what we needed more of, characters like Babu Frick or the Porgs. You like the Porgs? Those are good characters.
Well, that's
You know,
Last Jedi.
they're fun. And that's the other thing about this trilogy in general. We needed more fun. Like they tried to like manufacture or force fun, but it's like we just need fun. Like they took themselves too seriously sometimes. Um, and Baba Freak, like characters like that, they're just fun. I will say the one thing that I liked when, I mean, the very short bit that we got, but I really liked when Kylo turned back to Ben. I liked the way he looked. I liked that he was still like this cocky, like he knows he's good, and he does that little shrug. Like I love that. Um, and it had a little bit of Han Solo in it too when he did that. So like you love to see that when he's is good, he's still very much like Han Solo, where like Han Solo is a good person, but he's well, he tries to be a bad boy basically. He's like, man, I know it's whatever. So I did like that part a lot, even if it was short lived and literally short lived. Um,
Haha.
oh, and I forgot to mention about the Knights of Ren, who
Some bullshit.
we got built up for 3 movies just for them to stand around. But you
Yeah.
did point out to me that one of them used the Force, and I totally missed that. And that's good to know they can use the Force, and then they were dead. So cool.
Some of the biggest fucking build up bullshit, waste of time and money for a lot of people.
They were so prominent in the Force Awakens trailer, like in the trailers. So I'm like, oh, cool. These guys look awesome. All we get to see is them standing in the background. Literally didn't even talk about them in The Last Jedi. I feel like Ryan Johnson just totally forgot that they were even in the fucking first movie, or whoever. Like, did everybody just not realize, like, oh, hey, there was some Knights of Ren they talked about. Should we bring them here? No. And then the last movie is like, well, shit, I don't have time to do anything with the Knights of Ren now, so I guess we're not going to use them. But they look cool, so I'll put that in the good, I guess. Now we'll talk about one more scene that I did like, and it was seeing Leia as a Jedi, and that actually that had me a little like. I think this is I'm also thinking about Carrie Fisher, but it had me a little teary eyed, like, oh my gosh, she did train. So that was cool to see. But yeah, it's too bad we didn't get to see more stuff like that.
Yeah, and yeah, the whole thing with Luke and Leia as Jedi, even though it was pretty much just a big ass CGI thing, like that was cool, but at the same point, I'm like, it's a lot of too little, too late in the movie, and I didn't feel the heart of it. I just, I didn't care by the end. I feel so bad that I don't because Ray was a great character. Kylo was a great character. Poe was a great. All of them were great.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just went into the fucking wall. And
Yeah.
AJ did the best he possibly could. I'm sure if he would have been able, or if they would have allowed him the time to do all three instead of trying to go back to back to back, because I can't see anyone surviving that. Because it is fucking insanity to think that any human being could do that and pull it off correctly. Because he wrote the first one and directed it and produced, and that's a fucking daunting ass task
Yeah.
just to try and bring it back. and then you want to do another one right away, and then probably the next one after that. Like, you wouldn't be able to do it, Disney, on your like one person. Like, I can't see Bob Iger doing that.
No,
There's a lot of other shit, but
that's so much to do. Yeah, that ultimately there's just no matter what you do, it's just hard to fully enjoy this trilogy. You just can't. There are parts that you can enjoy, but in almost all the movies, it's kind of I'll say except for Force Awakens because I feel like that throughout was pretty good until like probably about the end. But yeah, throughout these other two, it's just hard to enjoy the good stuff because it's almost always immediately ruined by something else or some weird choice. And I honestly I tried my hardest. I really did. I tried my hardest to really like these films, but like the more you watch it, you just can't. And I remember Last Jedi. I defended that shit at first. I was like, no, this is good. They're doing something different. You know, fuck you guys. You just don't like it, blah blah blah. But then, uh, yeah, the more I watched, I'm like, yeah, you know, I got a point on that part, right? You know, so it's like it's really hard, and especially because you can't really enjoy them, like you said, in succession. You can't watch them all in a row and feel like, wow, I just went through this whole grand adventure with these three movies because they feel so disconnected from each other, which makes you feel disconnected from the characters and the story, especially the characters, because they change every movie. You don't really know what their motivations are sometimes, and that's what to me drives so many movies is characters, location, and the story, like a cohesive story. And so it was missing like literally the main ingredients you need
yeah.
for a good movie, let alone a trilogy. So yeah, I don't know, man.
I don't think these films are gonna age well at all. I think this will just be a dark mark in Star Wars history, and they're
Yeah, if 10, 20 years from now we see people talking about these films like they talk about the prequels now, then I will be surprised. I just don't see it happening because people talk about the prequels because of the characters. So unless they make something that's like on the level of Clone Wars that's so fucking good that people start liking these characters again, I don't see them aging well at all. I can totally agree with that.
well. The thing is with Clone Wars, there's years in between those films.
Oh yeah.
You don't have that with this, and
Within the few minutes that Ray met Luke, all this happened. Here's the series now.
doing a prequel type thing, like what are we gonna see Rey do? I'm on Jakku getting scavenger shit. Like, it's not gonna be about her. And the only one there's two people I'd be interested in, possibly three: Luke and Leia, and Kylo. Other than that, I don't really give a shit about Poe Dameron's early training. I don't really want to see Finn as a stormtrooper cadet because he never killed anybody, and there's not really a whole lot of action. He just was
Yeah,
training.
he complied at first, like, and then he stopped when the Force Awakens came. So it's like, what are you gonna make a series about with that? Or if you put him in a series, what is he gonna do? He's just gonna be a stormtrooper, like walking down the thing doing stormtrooper stuff.
I think you just give Luke his own series, make him badass, make people forget about the shittiness of Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, and just say Bon Voyage and give Mark Hamill the ending he deserves. I think that's the best thing that can come out of all this
And
shit.
then Luke finds the world between worlds, and he's like, "Oh my god, I see something happening in the future that I need to stop," and he changes everything.
I'd be totally fucking cool with that. Like, man, I don't want a grandson named Ben. I want one named Jason. or I guess
They're like,
nephew.
I want twins. Or he like looks into his future and he's like, wait, who's this? Who's this Mara Jade? I should have met her before. Hold on, we're gonna change a few things.
I would be totally fine if they retcon the shit out and be like, it was an alternative universe.
What's over here? What? The Old Republic? That sounds cool. Revan, hey, can you come through?
So, all right.
This is me wishful thinking now.
Yeah, I'm done talking about this fucking movie. Let's just end it right here. May the force be with you all.
Always.
Fuck Rise of Skywalker.
No, I can't even see my. It's weird.